Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another installment of Transition Talks with Athlete Soul, where we discuss the stories of transition with former elite athletes and what they have learned throughout the process. I'm your host, Steve Davis Jr., former football player, athlete transition coach with Athlete Soul, and the founder of Strive Higher After Sports. In this episode, I get the pleasure of speaking with Jordan Poydras, a former basketball star turned NIL savant. Now, Jordan has played Division II and Division I basketball at St. Cloud State and Utah Valley, and he has knowledge on what the current student athletes are facing in this new collegiate era. I'm excited for you to join in this conversation, so let's go. Thank you for being here, Jordan. How you doing?
I am doing great, man. Doing great. Thank you for having me on.
No problem, man. I love the background. Where are you currently?
Currently downtown Minneapolis. Yeah, I live here, Target Field right here, and hopefully going over to Game 5, just a couple blocks down to watch the Wolves put the Warriors away in five.
Yeah, they're doing good. They're doing good. And I had to shout out that background because people get this misconception about Minnesota. You see that beautiful landscape back there. It's sunny. Yeah, it looks beautiful out here sometimes.
Sunny, pretty, tons of green, as you can see.
Yeah,
Minneapolis, beautiful, man. Very blessed.
for sure. Well, I appreciate you being on the show, and then let's dive in. I know you're a former basketball player, but my first question is really about, when did you first fall in love with basketball and identify with basketball?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. Really, I'm so glad you asked that because I really love my answer. So I love basketball. I can remember being like 3, 4 years old, having a basketball and going and standing under like the 10-foot rim and just throwing the ball up there repeatedly, and the ball wouldn't go in. And I would just sit and get like frustrated about how the ball wouldn't go in the basket. And like as I got older, I just kept wanting to see the ball go in the basket more and really like fell in love with like the repetition of seeing the ball go in more and more. And I think when you see yourself improving, you just want to get better and better at it. So I think I fell in love with the game at a young age. Obviously, it's something I still get to do today is be a little bit involved in basketball, and I've always wanted to do that. So. Yeah, fell in love with the game at a young age. Obviously, still love it. Still love that I get to watch it, be involved with it, and obviously just playing it at a decently high level. I think I know a lot about it, so just increases your love for it. So yeah, basketball for me has always kind of been something that I've always wanted to be around and be a part of.
Oh, yeah, man. I'm glad to hear that, starting from the early age and just the love that you fell into it. And obviously it took you to different places. So let's talk a little bit about that, like your collegiate experience. Well, I know also you were originally from LA. What happened with the move and how did that help to translate to, getting a college scholarship and things like that? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I lived in LA, scrawny little kid. Moved from LA to Atlanta, and when I got to Atlanta, I always tell people I feel like Atlanta has some of the best athletes in the world. Shout out Anthony Edwards. But I feel like they have some of the best athletes in the world. And when I got out there, people were so much stronger than me. They were more like developed, and I played with some really, really good players. So I played with Ryan Harrow, who was a top point guard in the country. He ended up going to Kentucky. Played. I played with Glenn Rice Jr., Glenn Rice Jr.'s brother, Dimitri Rice. So those were guys on my team, and they never took it easy on me. Like we'd play one on one, and they could have shot a jump shot, and they weren't shooting jumpers on me. They would go right through my chest, and they would make sure I knew about it, and they had something to say after it. So, like on that path to for basketball, to your first question, like I'm so thankful for my journey moving from LA to Atlanta, Atlanta to Green Bay, Green Bay to Minnesota where I played, and then Minnesota to Utah where I also played. Because I feel like every step of the journey for me has taught me something. So moving to Atlanta like taught me, I think, how to play the game with toughness and how to have that swagger and like how to just how to really just develop as a player. When I got to Wisconsin, I learned how to play with structure. When I got to school, I played for like a very kind of like more militant coach that taught me discipline, accountability. He used to have this saying where he said, if you're 5 minutes early, you're late. If you're 10 minutes early, you're on time. And I feel like that, I've like taken that into my personal life. And then from there, I went and played for the now head coach at Kentucky, Mark Pope, and learned a lot of things about how to be a pro in basketball, but also a pro in my work career. Just getting to watch him. I got to watch him politic a lot. And I don't think it's any surprise that he's the head coach at Kentucky now, based off what I saw of him for 2 years. So I feel like every step of my journey, man, has been like really, God has been in the details because I've had such a cool look from every side of the game, from different levels with high level players and high level coaches. So yeah, really blessed to have been on this journey and just kind of have some of these things just fall in my lap is what it seems like at times.
Man, love that. And the lessons that we learn, and you're right, man, that 10 to 15 minutes early, it translates. Like we're always on time, and on
Yeah.
time for us is that 10 to 15-minute buffer.
Right, right. It's like, and you can like feel it too, right? Where like, if you're on time, it's like I feel like late. Like I obviously I have my desk right here, and I always try and be standing in front of my desk like 5 minutes before the meeting, or I just feel off, like something just isn't right. So
Yeah.
totally still take those same messages and throw them into my everyday life today.
No doubt. Well, yeah, man. So you talked about a lot of transition that you've already experienced, through, going from state to state playing basketball from the high school level. Then you went on to St. Cloud State to play in college, and then transferred over to Utah Valley, which is the place where you played under the current head coach at Kentucky. Um, did you have dreams and aspirations of playing pro? Like, what was the focus on that for you?
Absolutely. The goal was always to make it to the NBA. Still mad I'm not. Like when I get to the gates one day and I got a question for God, because I got questions for him too. One of my questions is why wasn't I like 6'6", 6'7", and how did I not make it? Like that's all I ever wanted to do. So 100% that was the plan. And and yeah, like, like the cool thing about when you hear, I feel like when you hear God's voice, is like he'll direct you. And a lot of times we want it to be like our direction. But I think sometimes you gotta be obedient and listen to his. So yeah, I wanted to play in the NBA. I hurt my shoulder, and that's kind of why I stopped playing. And I always said, even like growing up, the only thing that would stop me from reaching my dream or of like pursuing that dream would be an injury. And I never had any injuries my entire career. And then I went and played overseas, and like within like my third practice, my third day out there, I ran into a screen and my shoulder never felt right. It's like even to this day, I still feel like I got some tightness. Not really sure what's going on, but yeah, playing in the NBA was always the dream. Maybe one day I would still like to work in it, but absolutely, like the dream first was to be a pro, and I never really wanted to play overseas. It was like, I want to make it to the NBA, and that was the goal. And if I can't play there, like how can I get in? So I think I'm still building towards that today, but the initial goal was, to hoop Kobe up in a one-on-one in the Lakers gym, but it just didn't work out like that for me. So
Yeah, no, I hear that, and I think a lot of us, have that dream and aspiration to play pro and take it as far as we can, whether it's playing overseas and other places. And sometimes we don't have that control. And then, in your case, you're talking about an injury. So when you went through that transitional period, what's one tough thing that you learned through that process?
yeah, I think you and I might have touched on this a little bit last year when we were together. But I think, yeah, when you're going through that transition from being an athlete where you're kind of like giving everything, you have all the resources, everybody wants to be your friend, to now you have to go and make it in like the business world. um, it's like a lot of those resources aren't there anymore. Like you think that you have all the help, everybody wants to help you because that's always how it's been. And then, you might pick up the phone and make some calls about an opportunity, a job, whatever, and it's just not the same. So I think the transition is hard. And that's why anybody that's still transitioning or even younger guys, especially all these NIL guys just working in the industry that are being paid all this money and are just like, oh, this is how my life will be. I'm always going to get $700,000 in a year. I always try and like share that with them that it's not like that. You're the star running back right now. If you're not going up to that shield up there, like the best NIL deal you could ever get is a full-time job. So
Mm.
I really always try and harp on that transition, man. It's not easy. It's really hard actually. So it was hard for me, and I'm always trying to help people that are making that transition because I know it's not. It's hard on your mental. Like all you've ever known is being an athlete, and that transition is it's just then they don't. There's no book for it, right? Nobody's really like telling you like, hey, this is what it's like for you. Like they tell you it gets hard, but nobody tells you what it'll be like in your experience. So I definitely went through like a phase of I've only been an athlete, and yeah, getting out of that is it's hard.
Yeah. No, that's real. I mean, we all face it in different ways. And like you said, there's no playbook that tells you like, hey, this is what you should expect.
Yeah,
You're going to go through that grieving process. And you talked about NIL. So let's touch on that. How did you get into the NIL space and what is your current role with it?
sure. So I was working in NIL from a pro perspective as a consultant, doing NIL deals for a pro. So it wasn't considered NIL, but it was just marketing opportunities. And then I also worked in sales with CPG and like retail organizations. So I had relationships kind of on the business side where these people would say, "Hey, we'd be open to doing NIL deals." And so I started my own marketing agency where I had a roster of about 10 clients that I would work on behalf of to get opportunities. So just kind of doing that, you hear about the NIL rules. Obviously, you're out, you're making business relationships, you're doing marketing deals. And one thing I just want to share real quick: everybody thinks there's so much money in NIL until you're actually on this side of it, and you find out all the money is like donor money, and the advertisements, marketing opportunities. There actually isn't a lot of those. So I had been doing that for about a year, and Open Doors, which is a popular, successful NIL business, reached out to me and offered me an opportunity to come onto their staff, where I was working with the policies, laws, do's and don'ts of NIL, traveling campus to campus, working with athletic directors, general counsels, athletes, coaches, you name it, helping them understand the NIL rules. So I got a really keen understanding of what is happening at the ground level, and then as just being a part of the organization at Open Doors, I had about 12 schools. So I had all our HBCU partners and then a couple Power Five partners where I could go and have, multiple conversations about what each school was doing, how they were thinking about NIL. So it just kind of furthered my understanding of how schools were thinking about NIL and what was really happening behind the scenes. So having that knowledge, came out here to Players Health about a year ago, and have been building out insurance solutions for the NIL world. And I don't want to say it's been successful because we still have a long way to go, but I think we're off to a good start in building out some of these solutions. And here, I'm a senior risk advisor, so I really oversee all the stuff that we're going to do on the sales side. So if it's binding a policy, working with a university partner, an agency partner, an athlete, I'll help them bind those policies and really help them understand their risk that's involved with the market that they're in. And then once they're able to identify their risk, I just help give them tools to manage their risk and they can transfer it over to us. So at a high level, that's what I'm working on every day. And the NIL industry is a beast. Always things changing, and I think when you have like an interest in sports and you see where the landscape is going, it's definitely a ton of fun to be in every day because it's something new all the time, always a new adventure.
Man, it's crazy to think about, like, where we are currently in the college landscape, that NIL is a thing, it's an industry. There are many people who are in the space, trying to, provide funding and help the athletes. Just thinking about the times that we played in college and, the fact that we did not have that. And you touched on this a little bit about, some of the athletes, what you would say, but just taking it a little step further, just thinking about the long-term aspects of the athletes that are now in the current college landscape. If you were playing now, like what type of advice would you like to hear that will help you benefit in the long run in your life, from taking advantage of the opportunities?
That's a great question, bro. I think what I would have liked to have heard the most is like while you're on campus, because I know the transfer portal, you can transfer schools every year, and I love the rule in theory. I think you should be able to transfer, go play wherever you want, wherever you feel like is the best opportunity for you and your family. The negative to that, though, that I also see is you don't build any relationships internally. And I would heavily encourage all these athletes today to build those relationships internally with their compliance people, with their professors, with their athletic director. Like those people can really change your life. Like those people can put you in a situation, in a role on your campus that other people simply can't do. So I stress that even now. And I know they look at me like I have 10 heads when I say this, but like that money that you're getting, it's great. Like, if you're like a real business, like you're gonna operate like a business. Like put your money away, put it to work, do whatever you do, but like the real currency, the real value is in the relationships that you have on campus. So that would be like if I had a megaphone, what I was like screaming to the athletes in the megaphone is like build real relationships with your teammates first, and then also your on staff athletic department, or not even just your athletic department, like your on staff people. because those people like they're in the driver's seat in a lot of situations. You don't realize it because you're just playing and you're moving and grooving, but like those are the people that you should be building relationships with on your campus for sure.
Man, yeah, relationships definitely matter, and I'm glad you harping on that because, I think about the world now, and you go out and you're in your transitional period. Most of the times we're doing that by ourselves because it's like a new experience and we're grieving by ourselves. But like that power and community is impactful. It is super helpful to get you through, and having the right relationships around you is important in order to help you foster, the new energy and ignition and things that you want to do, moving forward in your life. So thanks for mentioning that. One thing I wanted to ask you to kind of wrap up here, Athlete Soul is really dedicated to empowering athletes to grow beyond their sport. And a lot of what the resources that are provided help them identify that foundation and then begin to build on the steps to help them flourish in life. With that in mind, just thinking about your experience, what you have now gone through, and what you're learning now in this NIL space, and just thinking about athletes that are out here in the real world are transitioning soon from collegiate to whatever they're doing next. What would you say as an inspiration to help speak to their soul as an athlete to thrive in life after sports?
Yeah, man, another really good question. What would I say speaks to their soul? I would say probably like trust the small voice, man. I think that we all have that voice in our head that tells us like, what steps to take, what to stay away from, where to run as fast as you can, like in terms of like where is the success, like what does that path look like? I feel like we all have it in our palm, but it's just like listening to that small voice. So I would say just like trust that small voice, as crazy as it sounds. Like I think everybody says like believe in yourself, and I think believing in yourself is it's really hard because like the world tells you, just like be humble, like be docile, but that's not the real way. Like I remember I went to a church like randomly years ago, and the word that I walked in, it was just what I need to hear. It was like Godfidence, right? And just having confidence like through God that He is who He say He is, and it's like having faith in that. So I would say just like put your faith in something bigger than yourself, and when you're like walking in those steps, like you'll see it, like um you'll see that there's somebody going in front of you fighting all your battles, doing everything that you want to be doing as long as you're obedient. So like I would just say, man, trust that small voice and like really lean into your faith and what God has for you for sure.
Love that. That's very powerful. Leaning into the faith and the confidence. I like that. I'm gonna take that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
Jordan,
God.
I really appreciate you joining us today for this Transition Talks interview. Loved your story. Love what you're doing in the NIL space. I'm sure we'll be picking your brain as we continue to try to help the athletes navigate this space and have prosperous lives. But yeah, thanks for your time. Thank you everyone for joining us for another Transition Talks interview. Once again, if you're a former athlete and if you have a story to tell, please feel free to reach out to us and we will, get in touch with you and try to figure out a way of highlighting your transitional story. Because all we're doing is really here to help others get insight and learn on how they could, learn from us and in our transitional periods. And it's hitting all of us, no matter what sport you play. So hopefully these insights provide you encouragement. So thank you for your time today. We'll look forward to seeing you to the next one. And thanks, Jordan, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, bro. I appreciate you having me, man. Means a lot.